The question is that the address be agreed to, and I would remind the House that this, before I call the member for Mallee, I would remind the House that this is the member's first or maiden speech, and I would ask that the courtesy of the House be extended to him as we have done to others giving their maiden speech.
Thank you. Madam Speaker.
I call the member for Mallee.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, it was a great sense of honour that I now present to this House, the House of Representatives, and to the Australian people my maiden speech. I will endeavour at all times to speak common sense and to say words that build up and not tear down. On the very first day I took a seat in the 44th Parliament, I wrote on a note to myself, it reads, "We must lift our eyes in this place, for the people and the children of Australia are watching." Madam Speaker, on the 2nd of October 1788, the HMS Sirius left the Port Jackson colony with the hopes and prayers of a pledging nation. White Australia was just 249 days old. Tragically, many Australian Aboriginal tribes were dying from European diseases, the crops had failed, and the new colony was experiencing its first Australian-style drought. The Sirius travelled down to the 40th parallel with the roaring 40s winds in her sails. She circumnavigated the globe, stopping at Cape Town to get food and supplies, the journey taking 7 months. Now, if that ship had sunk, Australia as we know it would have starved to death. 225 years later, our abundance is truly amazing. Australia has a population of over 21 million people, yet we produce and export enough food for 75 million people. We have one of the highest standards of living in the world and some of the longest life expectancy rates. This nation that we call Australia has prospered. I stand here today proud to represent the people who live in the federal seat of Mallee. I am here because the people who live in the Wimmera, the Mallee and the Mildura region want a strong voice. The major political parties ran a tough campaign against me, but it was the people of Mallee that put me here, and it's them that I will serve. I'm a member of the Nationals because I'm a patriot. The Nationals are a true democratic party where the only people who choose the candidate are the people who live in the electorate. And if you can indulge me a little bit, my other parliamentary colleagues, in the short time I've been in this place, I've become prouder of our team. They've got an immense intellect, a great deal of integrity, and will endeavour to stand up for good policy. The electorate of Mallee is 32% of the land mass of Victoria. It has the Grampians in the south and the mighty Murray River in the north. It encompasses the Wimmera, the Mallee and the Mildura regions. All the food you could ever want is grown in Mallee, and everything for your daily needs. Cereal, milk, toast, orange juice for breakfast, grown in Mallee. Fresh table grapes, almonds for morning tea, grown in Mallee. Mallee lamb, vegetables with a glass of red wine for lunch, grown in Mallee. And if you're lucky, you might catch a Murray cod, technically on the New South Wales border, and have some salad and white wine for dinner, also grown in Mallee. In fact, the only food that is not grown in Mallee, and I have found is essential to this parliament, is coffee. The federal seat of Mallee is a regional electorate. We are proud of our agriculture. We are proud of our small business, proud of our tourism, proud of our retail, our mining and our service industries. You know, the people who live in the seat of Mallee are tolerant, fair-minded Australians. They'll tolerate floods, they'll tolerate droughts, but they will not tolerate bull dust. And frankly, they've heard enough at times coming out of this place. And I, like them, don't think it's too much to ask for decent roads and telecommunications. It's not too much to ask for better health and educational opportunities for our kids. It's not too much to ask for a government that has a vision outside of the capital cities and the coast. You know, the people who live in my electorate do more for the Australian economy than most. Our wealth is built on their efforts, and a little of that wealth making its way back as infrastructure and services is fair. I want to remind other members of the parliament that when our regions are strong, our whole country is strong. Now, I'm here today because even my Kelpie sheepdog, Duke, was getting sick of me complaining about the direction of our country. I had worked after finishing high school in shearing sheds and on farms, and had saved some money towards a deposit for a farm. At the age of 22, I bought my first farm, and to my horror, every cent that I had saved was paid to the government as stamp duty. The government had taken 4 years of my labour as stamp duty, and I didn't even get to see the stamp. Now, I hear commentators talk about food security. The first imperative of food security is we must get young people involved in agriculture. The second is that the person who grows the food must make a fair living doing so. Now, I continued to farm, and at 26, after purchasing some more farmland, was hit by the drought of 2002. No income. My wife's total earnings wouldn't even cover the interest payments. I've got to say I had some sleepless nights. I want to acknowledge my wife, who's in the chamber here today in the gallery, my beautiful wife. She can give us a wave. I did pretty well for myself, didn't I? Just putting that on the hand side. But she stuck through me through this unfolding journey. I was encouraged to apply for drought support, and I still remember I was working in a shearing shed the day I received a letter telling me I was not eligible for assistance because I was considered unviable. What do? I got the old grinder spanner and an old rusty nail, and I nailed that letter to the shearing shed and swore, I'll show you who is unviable. I've now run a successful business for 15 years through drought, flood, hail, frost, and I am viable. Australia can throw a lot at you, but it has an amazing way of getting under your skin, and I've grown a deep love for this tough, great country. This is a great country. Now, if I can pinch a line from the Prime Minister for a moment, this great country deserves a great government. And the first role of a great government is the security of its people. Threats to security come quickly and often unexpectedly, and history is there for us to learn from. Please take a note of these dates. The 7th of December 1941, Japan entered the Second World War by bombing the American Navy fleet in Pearl Harbor. The 15th of February 1942, Singapore falls with the capture of 80,000 British and Australian troops, a tragic day for Australia. On the 19th of February 1942, Darwin is bombed for the first time. Do you know, from the entry of Japan in the Second World War to the bombing of Darwin and the defence of Australia was a period of only 10 weeks. The first role of a government is the security of its people, and a standing defence system, whilst expensive, is essential. The second role of a great government is to set the economic framework for the country. You know, governments don't create wealth, governments take wealth and distribute it. We must always remember that it is the pursuits and endeavours of individual Australians that build the prosperity that Australia enjoys. If there is no incentive for people to work harder or take risks, then they won't. Our economic settings must reward hard work and enterprise. If a person can work, they should work. And providing incentives to catch the first rung of the employment ladder is important in a developed economy. The best thing we can do is provide a person with an opportunity, but after that, it is a matter of personal responsibility. Our mining resources need to assist and diversify the Australian economy. The mineral resources belong to the Commonwealth. That is the wealth of the common man. I believe preferential rather than world pricing for gas and other energy sources needs to be looked at so Australians can compete with other countries in producing goods, but we'll never be competitive on the wage market alone. I fear the costs of constructing major infrastructure is too high. Australians once built the railroads, roads, ports and bridges that we needed to develop the country. If we can build it once, we can build it again. These are the pathways that we use to shift our product to the world and to help make our economy strong. Australia needs a proactive drought policy. If there is one thing I've learnt about Australia, it's that when it is dry, it will be wet again, and as sure it is wet, it will be dry. And even after many seasonal cycles, we've still not learnt to fully prepare for the seasons ahead in this country. Australian governments have paid lip service to Northern Australia, which absolutely should be developed. yet have progressively shut down the Murray-Darling Basin. Our governments developed a Murray-Darling Basin plan but didn't have the political stomach to build a dam or put engineering works in the lower lakes. The price of ownership of irrigation water became expensive, robbed irrigators of confidence, and then commentators called those irrigators willing sellers and bought their water and took it out of production. You know, what I observed in the Murray-Darling Basin Plan meetings across the region were articulate bureaucrats who knew little about water management clash with farmers who, whilst not having fancy words, knew more about the environment and effective water management than most. But eventually those irrigators went home and kept farming because they had businesses to run. And this is what governments call consultation. We have a standard of living that I fear is now based upon the flogging off of natural resources and the purchasing of goods produced with cheap wages from the Asia-Pacific region. The biggest export out of the Port of Melbourne is empty shipping containers, and I know we can do better. You know, as an Australian Nuffield scholar, I've been blessed to study policy and trade in every continent in the world. I've met with policymakers and leaders in many places such as Europe, South Africa, United States of America, Russian Federation, China, Indonesia, Argentina and Brazil, just to name a few. And I thank Nuffield for the many opportunities that I've had to travel and experience global trade. I don't hold to the idea that the free market is always right, and when it comes to trade, there is no level playing field. I believe in pragmatic policies that suit Australia's national interests. This is one of the reasons I actually admire Australia's 14th Prime Minister, John Joseph Curtin, the former member for Fremantle, a Prime Minister who broke convention and recalled Australia's troops from North Africa because it was Australia's national interest. John Curtin put Australia's national interest first, and we as members of Parliament but walk in the shadow of giants such as he. We must always remember, one here from the Labor Party, we must always remember that we live in the real world, not the ideal world. My conclusions from global observations are this: every country acts in its own self-interest first. The closer you are to the customer, the more you control the price. In a true globalised world, the lowest cost producer has the competitive advantage. At times, there is value in an interventionist currency policy. The world places more value on Australia's agricultural assets than we do ourselves, and Australian-based boardrooms are more responsive to Australian social, environmental and political pressure than boardrooms based on other parts of the world. This government that I am proud to be a part of has challenges ahead. We must walk the balance between living within our means and spending to invest. It will be the collective views of every member in this House, of all political persuasions, that must steer Australia through the turbulent years that lie before us. A strong economy is the engine room. We must build a strong economy so we can build a great society. For it is only when we have the financial resources then we as a country can action our dreams and hopes that we have for this great society. And what is it that makes a great society? A great society values and supports those who cannot look after themselves, the unwell, the people living with severe disability, our senior Australians who require care. A great society invests in our children to expand the worldview and give them an appetite to learn, to make great citizens instead of just graduates. Citizens who know the difference between right and wrong and choose right. After all, it was Theodore Roosevelt who said, "Educate a man in his mind and not in his morals, and you create a monster." And a great society invests in other countries through aid and agricultural information exchange to lift life expectancy and improve the standards of living for others. The only thing that may stop Australia from being that great society is our level of indifference. Individual aspirations build community only if the individual is not indifferent to the needs and sufferings of others. Our pursuits of material wealth must be tempered by our generosity. For it is when we align the hearts of mankind with the compassionate heart of God that we truly build a great society. The HMS Sirius returned to Port Jackson, saving the colony from starvation, and eventually that colony became the Commonwealth of Australia. And in the history of the Australian Commonwealth, only 1,333 people have ever taken a seat in the House of Representatives. That's an immense responsibility for people in this chamber. I assume this role with a humility and gravity and want to assure the people of the Wimmera, Mallee and Mildura region that I will always do my best. We have now before us the responsibility and privilege to build on the 225 years of Australian history and the thousands of years of Aboriginal history. With hard work, God's blessing and good government, I believe our best years are ahead.